Audio Jungle.
Well, hello parents. I am here today with Kris Anderson, who is the owner and clinical director of Building Bridges Christian Counseling. He's a friend of mine who we are referring students and families to for therapy, and he just loves students and loves working with families. And so I've asked Kris if we could do some of these videos where we talk to you parents about these crises that we're going to be sharing with your students about. And so having the clinical experience that Kris does, he's obviously an expert in these fields. So I'm going to have a few questions for you, Kris, and again, this is just for the parents. So my first question for you is, we're talking about depression this month. What are some warning signs to look for, and if you could kind of define depression in layman's terms for us?
Okay. Well, depression is, you could even put it on a scale of 0 to 10. That on one end of the spectrum is that they aren't depressed at all, that they aren't blue, that they're doing just fine. There's the normal ups and downs, and teenagers tend to be a little more up and down than other people. To the very end of being very down, very suicidal even, and completely losing hope. And so often you see someone who's kind of on the path and maybe somewhere in the middle, and there is a point where they need intervention, there's a point where they need help, and there's points where they're just kind of the normal ups and downs of life. The things that you would see with a teen who has depression would be things like adults tend to get more sad, and teens tend to get more irritable. And so you see them in more conflict. You might see them struggling more in school. You might see that their sleeping or eating patterns have changed quite a bit, that they're either too much or too little. Difficulty concentrating, difficulty getting tasks done. Sometimes it's difficulty, they don't enjoy the things they used to enjoy. And so often they might isolate themselves from more than just a few friends. So there's a lot of things that just kind of in your spirit you would just say, there's something wrong, there's something not right, but I can't quite put my finger on it, but I kind of sense that the kid is kind of going into trouble.
Okay, and so Kris, maybe there's some parents who are just watching, even up to this point, are going, wow, that's my student. I think my student may have depression. What kind of tips would you give them for approaching that conversation? Because as a parent, that can be really scary. I mean, you don't want to trigger them, or you don't want to have any kind of false, you don't want to hurt them in any ways. And so what kind of tips would you give us as parents for talking with our students about depression?
Well, one thing to recognize is a lot of times they don't know they're depressed. They don't know that there's really an issue. They just know they're just not enjoying their life right now. So as you're approaching the conversation, be open, but be kind of persistent. You might have to ask a question and then back off for a while, and a day or two later kind of ask them again. If they are towards the far end where they're really in a bad place, you're going to be watching their behavior. And if they do things that are really scary, things like talking about suicide, talking a lot about death, writing poems or things like that, kind of glorifying death or suicide, you find them giving away prized possessions or saying goodbye to people like they're never going to see them again. And you know that there's something wrong, and the place to start is usually to get them a physical exam, get them to their medical doctor, because sometimes there's a physiological reason for it. So you want to get that, and you want to make sure that the doctor knows everything you're noticing.
Interesting.
And if there is a family history of a mood disorder, mental disorder, something like that, you want to make sure that doctor knows about that ahead of time.
That's awesome. And then maybe can you give us a few tips on what kind of things should we avoid, or maybe words or approaches that you would recommend we stay away from?
Well, one thing that parents I often see do is they will let the teen talk until they disagree with the teen. And then they'll jump in and kind of shut them down. And so sometimes if you disagree with them, oh, you shouldn't feel that way, oh, you should do this, oh, that's just stupid, and they just kind of don't allow the teen to really express what they're going through. So be a willing ear, and be willing to just kind of hold back and let them say what they need to say with respect. That teens need to be able to talk about their feelings while still respecting their parents, but yet being open.
That's awesome. Well, hey, thank you so much, Kris, for your time. This was just a quick snapshot of depression. Obviously, there's a lot more to understand about this topic. If you are interested in finding out more about depression, I want to encourage you to go to pfbpurpose.com/HSM-crisis. It's going to be at the bottom of the screen, pfbpurpose.com/HSM-crisis. There, we will have some books and resources that Kris has recommended. As well, we will have all of Kris's contact information. And if you're interested in seeing a therapist, I couldn't recommend anyone higher than Kris. He's just phenomenal with students and families. And so we'll have his information, and then as well books and resources for you parents on the topic of depression at pfbpurpose.com/HSM-crisis. So, hey, thank you, Kris, so much for joining us today. And parents, we love you guys.
Thank you.